everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. For today's video, we are going to be repurposing this sign that I bought from Dollar Tree. I didn't realize until I first started crafting that you could repurpose so many things. And there are a ton of things that you can buy from Dollar Tree or any type of dollar store to kind of fit your own decor and your own personality. So we are going to be changing this sign here. Let's jump into it. So excuse any difference in the audio. I'm filming this part on my phone just because it's a little bit easier to point out each individual thing you're going to need for this particular craft. So the most important thing you're going to need is this sign from Dollar Tree. The next thing you're going to need is paint. These are the colors that I'm using since I'm doing a Jack Skellington theme. So I'm going to have black paint, white paint, orange paint, blue paint, and purple paint. Obviously, you're going to need a paintbrush. I am probably going to tape off the letters so I don't get the black where the letters are and vice versa. So I have some painter's tape. I have a roll of 651. This is from Expressions vinyl. I haven't opened it yet. So this is for the Jack Skellington face that I'm going to put in the heart. You could also paint it on there, but I'm not great at freehanding paint like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it with vinyl. So in which case you're going to need a Cricut or a Silhouette or some kind of machine like that in order to cut that out, unless you're going to paint it, of course, and then you won't need those. And then also you're going to need some paper to make those paper flowers that are attached. So I don't have the exact paper, obviously, that particular person used. So I just figured I'd use these different ones just because it has different patterns on it, and if you pay attention to the picture, those particular flowers, they're not necessarily solid. So I figured I would do a mix in between. I figured that there would be some nice designs in here. I'm thinking maybe the polka dot one that's here, but there's a ton in here, so I'll find something. And then the other thing I figured I could use is out of this Dia de los Muertos pack here, because the colors are similar, and then again the skull theme kind of matches the Jack theme, so I figured I could find something out of here. And then for the solids, I'm going to use a blue and a purple. I haven't decided which hue yet. Once I figure that out, I'll of course show you. And then you're going to need a Cricut to cut out your paper flowers. You don't have to put the paper flowers on there, so that's optional as well. I think it makes it look a little bit nicer though. As far as where my paper came from, I doubt that this still exists. This is from Hobby Lobby. I got it this summer. Obviously it was on clearance for $4.99, so I picked that up. And the rest are from Michaels. They're their hot buy paper. So for the paper flowers, I have my paper quiller here. You don't have to have this particular tool. There's a couple of different ways you can use it to roll the paper flowers. I used to use tweezers, but then I got this. I've actually never used it, so we'll see how that works out. And then this is supposed to be used to kind of distress the edges of the paper flower, so never used that before either, so we'll see how that works out. But yeah, let's jump into making the craft. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is pop this off, which shouldn't be too difficult to do. It's not on there very well. And then I'm going to attempt to tape off these letters and then start painting the black. Let's see how difficult this is. Okay, so it kind of left this piece of paper here where the glue is. I'm going to try to gently get this off without ripping off the top finish of this, just so it looks better when you paint it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to sand it. not too concerned about this pulling off the color. As you can see, it's kind of pulling off the color. It's not pulling off the top layer of this though, so that's good, because I'm going to paint over this anyway. So this gives me a flat surface. There shouldn't be too much texture there. Okay, on to taping and painting. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't tape off the heart because I'm just going to freehand that part. And your tape job doesn't have to be that great. I just need the letters outlined so I'll be able to paint them in. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and paint the back of this, the matte black, with this acrylic paint. Okay, so now I'm gonna let this dry a little bit and then obviously throw on another coat because this is not the greatest looking right now. But I think with either 1 or 2 more coats it should be good to go. So, I'm gonna let this dry, I'll put on a couple more coats, and then I'll let you know how many I had to do. Okay, so as you can see, it is pretty much dry. I ended up doing 3 coats of the black paint, and it looks pretty good. Can't complain. Let's jump into painting these letters. First up, we're gonna do our blue L. Okay, so you can see on the L where the white is showing here. I'm gonna go ahead and paint the letters, and then what I'll end up doing is going back over with the black to go back over these spots, just because you're gonna have to neaten up the edges anyway. And I am going to use a smaller brush to do the letters. Obviously it's going to take quite a few layers of paint to cover that, so I'll go ahead and do that and then let you know how long it takes. So, I'm back again. I'm not sure, I'm gonna try to paint this heart white and see how that does, because I think I might have to use some white paint as a primer for these letters, because that is just not, that's gonna take a million coats. So, learn from my mistakes. Okay, so I'm thinking I am gonna have to prime for the other colors. Obviously, the heart needs some help, and I need to do a few more layers of paint on that. So what I'm gonna do is on-tape the letters and go ahead and paint them with the white. This I gotta wait to dry to go over that. But I'm gonna cut off the camera for that because I don't think you wanna watch all this in fast motion. But yeah, I'm just gonna remove the tape from the letters and then go ahead and put the white paint on, and then I will be back. Okay, so I went ahead and primed all these letters. I'm gonna let this dry before I go ahead and paint over it. The heart, I've actually put about 3 layers on it, and from looking at my viewfinder, it looks like it's pretty opaque here. But if I bring it up close, I don't know how well you can see. It just definitely needs some more layers, but I want this to go ahead and dry before I go ahead and put the other letters on it. It shouldn't take too long to dry, but right now it's like 11:30 at night, so I'm probably just gonna leave this to do its thing overnight, and I will pick back up with this in the morning. So here is after one coat of blue. I'll go ahead and let this all dry overnight and then see what we get tomorrow. Okay, so it is the next day at 3:53 in the afternoon. I had a long night last night. I had to take my little puppy to the emergency vet. Anyway, I worked on this morning. It's not quite as smooth as I would like it to be. I'll give you a warning now if you hear some bumping around in the background. It's my blind Boston Terrier that's also having some health problems. She's pretty anxious right now, so she's just kind of pacing around the house. In any event, it's not as smooth, like line-free as I would like it to be, so I will probably do some more layers, but this is the L and this is the heart. Both have probably about 4 layers of paint on them. I'm probably going to do a couple more, but I also would like to get these other letters done, so let's get that happening. Okay, so off camera I put one more layer of paint on each of these, and I'm liking the way it looks a little bit better. I'll get a better angle of this with my phone in just a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and paint these other letters. You can see that there's areas where I messed up, but I'm just going to go back through and touch up with the black paint all at the end to make these lines more crisp, obviously. But yeah, let's do these next 2 letters. Okay, so I have my first layer of purple and orange on here. So I'm off camera, I'm gonna go ahead and put more layers of paint on here as they dry. I think that'd be pretty boring to watch in time lapse, so I'll just do it off camera and then show you when I'm done with that, and then we'll get into lining out these letters. Okay, so I think I'm done with my layers of paint for each one of these letters. They each took about 3 or 4 layers of paint for me to like the opaqueness of it. There are some spots that I might go over again, and if I do, I'll let you know. So the next plan is to clean up these edges and just make this look more neat with a thin paintbrush and the black paint that I used originally on this. So yeah, I'm just going to clean up the edges around that, and then I'll decide whether or not I'm going to clean up the actual letters. Okay, so here it is touched up, and I'm popping a video with my phone as well. I'm going to let the outline dry, and then I'm going to touch up the letters. I'll do that off camera and I'll show you the end result. But overall, I don't think it looks terrible, and the parts that I think I'm not going to be able to fix, I can just cover up with a paper flower, so that works out. Okay, so here's a better look at it with my phone after I've touched it up. I'm not the greatest painter in the world, so I'm actually pretty pleased with this. Doesn't look too bad to me. In any area that I think is too shabby, I'm just going to cover up with a paper flower. So let's move on to the paper flower part. Okay, so you're going to want to click into Design Space or whatever you have to use for Silhouette. I have a Cricut, so it's Design Space. And wait for this to load. Now, I have already downloaded the pattern that I need from Jennifer Maker's website. I'm going to have it linked down below. But what I did was I clicked on, it's the large rose pattern. So I brought that up in Design Space. I don't need the stem or the leaves, so I got rid of that. So here I was just showing you that I was resizing these to make the two smaller ones. Honestly, I just kind of eyeballed the size because I just wanted them to be smaller than the other ones that I was going to be making. So I just kind of picked a size, and then once I figured that out, I hit duplicate. And then once you hit duplicate, depending on what size you made your flowers, you'll have to figure out how you're going to get them to fit on your mat, if it's going to be too big, like wider than 12 inches or so. So that's what I was doing here, is I had just duplicated them. And then once looking at the size of it, realizing that I was going to have to cut 2 mats because it was too big, what I did was I just kind of moved these around so that they would fit, so that they would both cut on the same mat. And that's what you'll see in the rest of the screen recording. Okay, back on my phone because it's just a little bit easier to get better shots this way. I'm going to be using my blue mat. And then for paper flowers, I'm going to be making 7 of them. So as I showed you in that screen recording, I'm going to make 2 smaller ones and then 5 larger ones because I want to do 7 flowers. So I have my plain pieces of paper here, and then these are the patterns I'm going for. I figured this would be okay for the blue. This kind of ties in all the colors, and I'm making this like my purple designed paper. And then for this one, ignore the outside. I'm going to cut on the inside here, and that's going to be that patterned like orangey yellow flower. So up next, what you're going to do is you're going to obviously put your paper onto your mat and then hit make it in Design Space if you have a Cricut and send it through your machine to be cut. For this, I usually use light cardstock because these pieces of paper are not that thick, and that seems to work well. So that's what I'll be using to cut these. So I realized I didn't do the full flower screen recording, so I figured I'd pop that in here. So again, went into Design Space, got rid of the stem and the little leaves that go underneath the flower. And then pretty much for the bigger flowers, I just kept it this size. Went through, I think I'm clicking make it here. And as you can see, it'll show up like this on the mat. So that's what this is. It took forever for my thing to connect, but pretty much if you have used Design Space before, you just go through the motions of making the actual flower and having it cut. Okay, so I've cut out all of the pieces of the flowers. Now, this is not something that I've done too much of. You're gonna need a hot glue gun. I think I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Once you roll your flower, that's what you're gonna have to use to seal it. I think you can use like tacky glue too, or a glue stick. I prefer to use my hot glue gun. Now, I have not rolled flowers all that much. I've only done one project with them, so I'm kind of new to it, but I do know the general idea. Sorry if you hear digging, that's my dog trying to get underneath a pillow. But you are going to need a quilling tool of some type. You can use tweezers, you can make a quilling tool out of like a wooden skewer or something like that. I bought the Cricut one. This is my first time using it, so we'll see how it works. But pretty much what you're gonna do is you wanna take this end of the flower, so not the center of the flower, but the outside, and you're gonna wanna roll it the way you want your flower to be. Okay, so I rolled one flower off camera to kind of get my bearings. I'm not entirely thrilled with the way it looks, but I can do a little bit of maneuvering with it. I didn't realize that the other side of the paper was white, and that's going to factor into it. So I wanted the pattern on the inside because that's what's going to be facing. And this is kind of what it looks like right now. I'm going to fix it up a little bit, and I'll explain how I do that, but I'll show you how to roll the other flowers. So again, I'm pretty new to rolling flowers, but you want to start with this end and not the center end. So you want to place this end into your quill. And then start rolling towards you. Trying to keep it as tight as possible. Okay, so once you have your flower rolled, typically you're supposed to take your quill out. Mine kind of fell out because that's just the luck that I have. This circle here, you're supposed to put this on the bottom of the flower to hold it together. Now, I kind of like the way this looks, how it is right now. I feel like if I loosen it up anymore, I'm going to let it loosen up just a little bit. I don't really like it that way. So, I think this flower turned out much better. Now, I'm going to glue the bottom, and then afterwards is when I'm going to go and try to like peel the layers of the flower out a little more and make them look a little bit more realistic. So there you go. It's kind of what this looks like right now. Okay, so I am going to roll the rest of these off camera. That just gives you an idea. I'll probably do a more in-depth video on how to roll flowers, but just to keep this a little bit shorter, because I know it's getting pretty lengthy, I'm going to roll these off camera. I'll show you what they look like rolled, and then we'll go ahead and try to make them look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so the flowers are done. Here's what they look like just rolled and glued. So next thing you want to do is you want to make them look obviously a little bit more natural than this. So you want to like spread out the flower and roll the petals. So we'll start off with this one because it is kind of spread out a little bit. So that looks okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this paintbrush and I'm just going to kind of bend some of the edge of the petals. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll show you. So as you can see, they're a little bit more rounded out and look a little bit more natural. So I'm just going to do that with the rest of these flowers here. Okay, so next step is going to be to glue these flowers onto my sign. Okay, so here is a little bit better look with these flowers attached. The last step is going to be cutting our Jack Skellington face to put in the heart. So once again, you're going to go into Design Space after you find your Jack Skellington face. I just kind of found this SVG online and I cleaned it up, so I already have it saved in my images simply because I made a Jack Skellington wreath as well as like a door swag to go with it. So I already have this SVG in my images. So I end up just going into my images. So I end up scrolling through all of these. There's an awful lot of them to scroll through. Scrolling. As you can see, I have several Jack Skellington faces, but this guy here is the one that I wanted to use, so I went ahead and opened it. I had pre-measured my heart to figure out what size I needed, And I think it ended up, I needed it to be at least 3.5 wide by 2.5 tall. And I went a little bit smaller than that. So I just resized it. And then from here, you of course click make it and make sure your machine is set out vinyl and cut it from there. Okay, so the next step after you have your Cricut or your Silhouette or whatever you're using cut out the face, you're going to weed your vinyl, and then of course you're going to need some transfer tape to transfer the face from here onto your sign. So I'm going to go ahead and weed this, and then I'll go ahead and apply it, and I'll show you the finished product. Okie dokie, so here's a little sneak peek of what it's gonna look like. I'll show you a full view of this done. I am super excited with how this turned out. I am not the greatest painter in the world, but you know what, this actually looks pretty good. So I'm excited that I made this, and I'm excited that I shared this with you. Let's jump into the outro. So excuse the fish tank sounds because I have to stand way back here, but this is what the finished product looks like on the wall, and I love it. So as you can see, this is our final product. This is what it looks like from afar, and of course I have inserted clips of what it looks like hanging on the wall. So unfortunately, as far as the time for how long it took to do this craft, I can't give you a exact time. It took me the span of 3 weekends. I typically can only craft on the weekends just because I'm so busy with work during the week. So if I had to pin it down, not including drying times, I would say that this probably took like maybe an hour or two to make. And again, that's not including the drying times for the paint and such. So it's gonna take a little bit longer from that. But overall, I'm extremely happy with how this turned out. I think it's super cute. I don't think you necessarily have to take it down after Valentine's Day. And again, I mean, if you don't like this particular style, you can always jazz it up to be your style, whatever colors that you want. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really cute craft, and I'm glad I did it. What do you guys think? But that is it for this video, guys. If you liked it, please give me a big old thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!